The night sky of Velen 4 stretched wide and dark, filled with drifting purple clouds that glowed softly like slow lightning. The forest below whispered with its strange silver leaves. And deep inside that forest waited a girl who had been forgotten by everyone, except her own heartbeat. The Vulpine princess, Lyra, sat with her tail wrapped around her knees, her long ears lowered as she watched the empty path. She had been told to wait. She had been promised rescue. She had been left behind. She tried to stay strong because her mother, the queen, always said that a princess must be brave even when her world felt heavy. But bravery was difficult when the shadows came alive with sounds she didn't recognize. Small creatures chirped in the bushes, and the wind carried distant cries of winged predators. Lyra hugged herself and whispered that she would be safe. Yet every passing minute made her fear that no one was coming. Far away from her, on the other side of the same forest, a human named Ethan Ward lowered his scanner and frowned at the blinking red signal. His ship had crashed hours ago after being hit by rogue raiders, and he had barely escaped before the wreckage burned. But the distress beacon on his wrist showed something else. An unknown energy pulse not made by his ship. It was steady, small, and rhythmic. Almost like someone calling for help. Ethan was tired, bruised, and his right leg hurt from the rough landing. But he was a man who could never ignore someone in danger. He adjusted his backpack, checked his utility blade, and started walking toward the signal. The silver trees rustled above him, dropping faint, glowing pollen, lighting his path as he pushed through the thick forest. He didn't know what he would find. Maybe a crashed drone, maybe a damaged beacon, maybe nothing. But he kept moving because something inside him said he needed to. Lyra lifted her head when she heard footsteps. She wasn't sure if they were real or just her imagination. But then the footsteps grew louder, slow, heavy, different from the forest animals. She stood up quickly and backed away, her large amber eyes scanning the dark. She held a small crystal shard, the only thing she had left from her mother's ship, and pointed it forward even though it couldn't hurt anyone. She only hoped it would make her look brave. Ethan pushed aside a branch and stepped into the small clearing where Lyra stood trembling. The moment he saw her, he froze. She was unlike anything he had ever seen, a young girl with soft orange fur along her arms, a bushy tail behind her, and long ears shaped like a fox's. Her hair was white like snow, falling around her face in uneven strands as if she had been running. She looked frightened, but also relieved, as if she had been waiting for someone to appear. He raised both hands slowly to show he meant no harm. "Hey. I'm not here to hurt you," Ethan said gently. Lyra blinked in surprise. She had heard stories of humans from old records, but she had never seen one. Her voice shook slightly. "A human?" she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Yeah, my name's Ethan. Are you hurt? Are you alone out here?" Her throat tightened, and her ears drooped again. "I was with my mother. Our ship was attacked. She told me to run and hide, and she said she would come back for me." Her voice trembled, but she continued. "But she didn't come back." Ethan felt a sharp pain in his chest, not from his injuries but from the sadness in her voice. He knew what it felt like to be left behind in danger. He took a cautious step forward. "I'm sorry. That must be scary. But you're not alone anymore. I'll help you." Lyra looked up at him, unsure whether to trust him. Yet something about his voice felt warm, steady, and safe. Something she had been longing for the whole night. Still, she didn't move closer. "My mother will come," she said quietly, though her eyes held doubt. "Maybe she will," Ethan said honestly. "But right now, the forest isn't safe. There are predators, and raiders might still be nearby. We should keep moving." She looked around nervously, her fox-like ears twitching. "I cannot walk far," she admitted. "I ran until my legs hurt, and I have no strength left." Ethan glanced at her small feet, scratched by sharp stones and rough roots. Without hesitating, He crouched down and held out his arms. "Come on," he said softly. "I'll carry you." Lyra stared at him with wide eyes. She had never been carried before, not by anyone, except her mother, when she was very young. She hesitated, unsure if she should accept. But when she heard a distant howl echo through the trees, fear shook her, and she stepped forward slowly. Ethan lifted her gently, surprised at how light she was. Her fur felt warm against his arms, and she clung to him instinctively as he stood up. Her tail curled slightly around his arm, and she pressed her forehead against his chest, as if trying to hide from the world. "You're safe," he whispered. "I've got you." Lyra tried to speak, but her voice came out as a quiet breath. "Humans carry others with such care?" He smiled faintly. "Only when someone needs it." As he moved through the forest, carrying her, Lyra listened to his heartbeat. It was steady, strong, and comforting. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, something new, something calm. She hadn't expected a human to be gentle. The stories she heard from old Vulpine records described humans as fierce, stubborn, unpredictable. But the human holding her felt nothing like the legends. He felt safe. Ethan didn't know where he was going exactly, but he used his scanner to map the safest direction. The forest thickened, and strange glowing insects drifted around them. Lyra shifted slightly as she looked at the bright creatures. "They follow heat," she whispered. "They won't hurt you." Ethan nodded and kept walking. Every time he stepped over a fallen log or ducked under low branches, he made sure she didn't get scratched. Lyra noticed the way he protected her and felt a tightening in her chest again. She wasn't sure what the feeling was, but it made her grip his shirt softly. After some time, Ethan slowed down. His injured leg throbbed, and he exhaled sharply. Lyra looked up at him with concern. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," he replied, though his voice betrayed his growing exhaustion. Lyra placed her small hand on his shoulder. Ethan shook his head. "Not yet. You need rest. But I'll be fine." She didn't know why, but his determination made her eyes sting with emotion. She wasn't used to anyone choosing her safety over their own, especially a stranger from a different species. She rested her head on his shoulder again, listening to the rhythm of his steps. The forest eventually opened into a rocky path where moonlight touched the ground. Ethan set her down carefully for a moment to catch his breath, and Lyra looked at him with concern she couldn't hide. "You're very tired," she said softly. "Still good enough to keep you safe," he replied. Before she could respond, a sharp, metallic noise cracked through the trees. Ethan instantly pulled Lyra behind him and crouched low. He scanned the shadows with tense eyes. Raiders. A faint red light flickered between the trees, moving steadily toward them. Lyra trembled, recognizing the sound. "They are the ones who attacked our ship," she whispered. Ethan gripped his utility blade tightly. He had no proper weapon, no armor, and no backup. But he had something stronger. He had a reason to fight. He looked back at Lyra, whose tail was curled tightly around her legs. She nodded weakly. The shadows shifted, and 3 raiders stepped into the moonlit path, their metal masks glinting. They spotted Ethan and Lyra instantly. "There," one of them growled. "The kid escaped. And she found a human? Perfect." Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Ethan stepped forward, placing himself fully between her and the danger. "You're not touching her." The raiders laughed. "You think you can stop us? You're just one wounded human." Ethan didn't move. His voice was steady. "Maybe. But she's under my protection now." Something in his tone made Lyra stare at him with wide, stunned eyes. He sounded like a shield, solid, unshakable, fearless. No one had ever stood for her like that before. The raiders charged. Ethan moved fast, dodging the first attack and blocking a blade with his own. Sparks flew as metal clashed. Lyra watched in fear as he fought with all his strength, his injured leg nearly giving out at one point, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. One raider swung a heavy weapon, and Ethan barely avoided it. But then he slipped. Before the raider could strike, Lyra screamed, not in fear, but in desperation. Ethan used the moment to roll aside, grab a fallen branch, and strike the raider across the helmet. The raider stumbled, giving Ethan the opening he needed to disarm him. Another raider lunged, but Ethan blocked the blow and kicked him back. The final raider stepped forward, more cautious now. Ethan braced himself, panting, bruised, exhausted. Then distant screeches echoed from the forest. The raiders flinched, recognizing the sound night predators. They cursed, stepped back, and retreated quickly before the beasts arrived. When they were gone, Ethan dropped the branch, breathing hard. Lyra rushed to him and grabbed his arm. "You're hurt," she whispered. "I'm fine," he said, though his voice was weak. She shook her head. "You saved me." Ethan smiled faintly. "Told you. I've got you." Lyra felt her heart pound in a way she couldn't explain. She looked at him as if seeing something impossible, something precious. The human who carried her through danger, the human who stood between her and certain death. Her voice came out as a soft, trembling whisper. "Thank you." Ethan gently squeezed her shoulder. "Come on. We need to find shelter." And as they walked into the moonlit forest, close together, Lyra realized something she never expected. She wasn't waiting anymore. She had been found. Ethan walked through the forest carefully, guiding Lyra with one hand while using the other to push aside thick silver branches. The wind whispered through the glowing leaves, and small insects drifted around them like tiny floating stars. Lyra stayed close, watching Ethan's steps, noticing how he limped slightly every time he put weight on his injured leg. She wished she could help him the way he had helped her, but she didn't know how. Her people had no healing tools with them, and she felt guilty for being a burden he had to carry through danger. Ethan didn't blame her for anything. He only wanted to get her somewhere safe before the raiders regrouped. He checked his scanner again, and the map flickered with a faint outline of the area. A small cave appeared as a possible shelter a short distance away. It was hidden between two cliffs and shielded by thick vines. A perfect place to rest. "We're close," Ethan whispered. "Just a little farther." Lyra nodded and kept pace beside him. Her tail brushed lightly against his hand by accident, and she pulled it away shyly. Ethan only smiled gently. "You can hold my hand, if it helps you walk." She stared at him, unsure if she should. Her ears tilted back, nervously. "Humans do not mind touching someone like me?" Ethan looked at her softly. "Someone like you? You're just someone who needs help right now. That's all." Lyra lowered her eyes, touched by his simple kindness. Slowly, she reached out and slipped her small hand into his. Ethan gave her hand a reassuring squeeze, and they continued walking together. When they finally reached the cave, Ethan moved the hanging vines aside and checked inside for danger. It was quiet, dry, and warm from the heat stored in the rocks. He motioned for Lyra to enter first. She stepped in and looked around with wide eyes. It was small, but safe, and she immediately felt the tension in her shoulders ease. Ethan lowered himself onto a flat rock and rubbed his injured leg. Lyra hurried to his side and knelt down, her long ears pulling forward in worry. "You're hurt more than you said," she whispered. "I'll manage," he said, though his face tightened with pain. Lyra carefully touched the torn fabric on his pants. The skin underneath was swollen and bruised. She bit her lip, feeling useless. Then she remembered something her mother taught her. Vulpine princesses learned basic forest knowledge, especially healing plants. "Wait here," she said quietly, and stood up. "Lyra?" Ethan called, worried she might wander off. "I won't go far," she promised. "I know plants that can help." Before he could protest, she slipped out of the cave. Ethan sighed, leaning back against the wall. He trusted her, but he still felt uneasy letting her go alone. She had already been through too much. Outside, Lyra moved quickly but carefully. Her sharp ears listened for danger, while her eyes searched the ground. The silver forest had many rare plants, but she needed the right one, moonfern. A plant with soft blue leaves that could reduce pain and swelling. Her mother used it once when Lyra fell during training. After a few minutes, she spotted the glowing leaves near a fallen log. She crouched down, plucked a handful gently, and held them close. Then, she heard a soft movement behind her. Her heart skipped, but when she turned, it was only a harmless herbivore creature, nibbling on roots. She sighed in relief and rushed back to the cave. Ethan looked up as she entered. "You didn't need to. This will help," she said firmly. She placed the blue leaves on a rock and crushed them with her small hands until they turned into a soft paste. The scent filled the cave, sweet and calming. Ethan watched her work, surprised by her skill. She didn't seem like a helpless princess at all. She moved with quiet confidence, her tail steady, her ears focused. She dipped her fingers into the paste and looked at him. "May I put this on your leg?" Ethan nodded. "Go ahead." Lyra knelt beside him. As she applied the paste gently, Ethan inhaled sharply. It felt cold at first, then soothing. Lyra's touch was careful, delicate, almost trembling. She didn't want to hurt him. She kept her eyes lowered, concentrating on each movement. "You're good at this," Ethan said softly. She looked up in surprise. "Really?" "Yeah. Honestly, I'd be in worse shape without you." Her face warmed with a shy smile. She finished spreading the paste and wrapped a cloth from Ethan's bag around his leg to hold it in place. When she was done, she sat back and watched him. "You protected me," she said quietly. "So I should protect you." Ethan met her gaze. "We protect each other." Lyra lowered her eyes again, feeling a soft warmth in her chest. She wasn't used to partnership. Vulpine royals lived under strict rules. She was always told what to do, where to go, whom to trust. But Ethan treated her differently, not like a princess, not like a fragile thing, but like someone with worth. They stayed in the cave for a while, listening to distant sounds of the forest. Ethan tried to rest, but his thoughts kept drifting. He needed a plan. The raiders would keep searching. They wanted Lyra for ransom or power. A Vulpine princess was valuable. If he didn't move her soon, they would both be trapped. "Lyra," Ethan said quietly, "do you know where your mother might go? Any place she would look for you?" Lyra hesitated. "There is an ancient Vulpine relay tower. It is old, but it can send a message far across the planet. My mother told me that if we were ever separated, I should go there." Her ears lowered. "But I never reached it." "Can you show me on the map?" Ethan asked. She nodded and leaned close to his scanner. She traced a trembling finger along the projected map. "Here, but it is far. Across the river valley." Ethan studied the distance. It would take time, especially with his injuries, but it was their best chance. "We'll go at sunrise," he said. "Right now, we rest." Lyra nodded, but she looked troubled. Ethan noticed and asked gently, "What's wrong?" She hesitated before speaking. "My mother. She always planned everything. Every step. Every path. But this time, she didn't come back for me." Her voice cracked softly. "Maybe she couldn't, or maybe she thought I was slowing her down." Ethan reached out and touched her shoulder lightly. Lyra froze at the unexpected warmth. "Lyra, if your mother didn't return, it's not because she gave up on you. Something must have stopped her. She risked her life to protect you. That's what a parent does." Lyra's throat tightened. She looked at Ethan's hand on her shoulder. She didn't push it away. Instead, she leaned slightly into the comfort. Do humans risk their lives for others too? Some do, Ethan said with a small smile. Especially when someone needs them. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her amber eyes shining faintly. She didn't fully understand him, but she trusted him. Outside, the wind howled, and the forest darkened. His face looked tired, more tired than he admitted. She wondered how much pain he hid behind his calm voice. Suddenly, her ears twitched. She heard movement outside the cave. Soft, careful, crawling movement. She rose slowly and touched Ethan's shoulder. "Someone is outside," she whispered. Ethan snapped awake instantly. He reached for his blade and moved closer to the entrance. Lyra stayed behind him, trembling. The vines rustled, and a low growl echoed through the cave. Ethan held his breath. A creature burst through the vines. Its body was long and scaled, its eyes glowing red. A forest predator drawn by the scent of crushed medicine leaves. Ethan pushed Lyra behind him as it lunged. The creature's fangs snapped inches from Ethan's arm. He dodged, grabbed a rock, and struck it across the snout. It roared and turned toward Lyra. She froze, terrified. Ethan threw himself in front of her again. The creature hissed and lunged a second time. Ethan rolled aside and grabbed a sharp piece of stone. With a fast strike, he stabbed the creature's side. It screeched and stumbled back, bleeding dark liquid. After a moment, it fled into the forest, disappearing through the vines. Ethan exhaled heavily and dropped the stone. His leg shook from the strain, and he nearly fell. Lyra rushed to him and held his arm. "You keep protecting me," she whispered, voice shaking. Ethan smiled weakly. "I told you. I've got you." She guided him to sit down again. Her hands trembled as she checked for injuries. He had a few scratches. Nothing serious. But she could see how much the fight had drained him. Lyra knelt in front of him, her eyes filled with worry and something deeper. "I'd do it again," Ethan said, meeting her gaze. Her heart pounded at his words. She didn't know why, but hearing him say that made her feel safe in a way she had never felt before. She sat beside him and let her tail wrap lightly around his arm, a Vulpine gesture of trust. Ethan looked at the soft tail around him and smiled. They rested in silence for a moment, their breaths slowly sinking. The cave felt warmer now, not because of the rocks, but because of the quiet connection forming between them. After a while, Lyra spoke in a soft voice. "Ethan, if we reach the relay tower, and my mother finds me, you will leave after that?" Ethan looked at her gently. "If you want me to leave, I will." She looked down quickly. "What if I don't want that?" Ethan blinked in surprise. "Lyra," she shook her head. "No, I do not understand my feelings yet. But when you carry me, when you protect me, I feel something warm. I do not want you to disappear from my life." Ethan's heart softened. He reached for her hand, and she let him hold it. "We'll figure it out together," he said softly. "First, we survive. Then we decide the rest." Lyra nodded slowly, leaning closer to him. She felt safe in the small space between his arm and the cave wall. Ethan let her rest her head against him. The forest outside remained dangerous, but inside the cave, something gentle grew between them, something unspoken yet powerful. As night settled deeper, Lyra whispered one final thought before drifting to sleep. "I was left behind, but maybe I was meant to meet you." Ethan looked at her peaceful face and whispered back, "You're not alone anymore." And the cave stayed warm long into the night. When the first light of dawn touched the silver forest, Ethan opened his eyes slowly. His body was stiff, his legs still hurting, but the warmth beside him made him forget the pain for a moment. Lyra slept with her head resting gently against his arm. Her tail curled softly around his wrist. Her breathing was calm and steady, as if she felt completely safe next to him. He didn't want to wake her, but time was precious. The raiders would begin searching again. The predators would roam for food. And the relay tower was still far away. But Ethan also didn't want to break the peaceful moment they had shared through the night. Lyra stirred slightly, her ears twitching as she woke up. She blinked, her amber eyes open, and looked up at Ethan. For a second, she seemed surprised to still be leaning on him. Then her cheeks warmed with shy embarrassment. "You slept well?" Ethan asked softly. She nodded. Ethan gave her a small smile. "Good. But we need to get moving soon." Lyra straightened, brushing her hair back with a quiet sigh. "I know. The relay tower is far. We should leave before the raiders spread out again." Ethan stood slowly, testing his leg. It still hurt, but Lyra's treatment had helped more than he expected. She noticed the tension in his face and stepped closer. "I can support you," she said. "Lean on me if needed." Ethan shook his head gently. "I'll be okay. But thank you." She didn't argue. She only stayed near him as he gathered their small supplies and checked the scanner again. The map showed the faint outline of the valley. The relay tower was several kilometers away, hidden in an old Vulpine ruin. Ethan cleared the entrance and stepped outside, holding a hand out for Lyra. She took it without hesitation, and together, they walked into the cool morning air. The forest was different in daylight. Silver leaves shimmered softly, and small animals scampered across the ground. But danger still lurked, especially the raiders. Lyra's ears were constantly moving, listening to every sound. Ethan kept his blade ready. As they walked, Lyra glanced up at him. "Why do humans help strangers?" she asked suddenly. Ethan thought for a moment. "Not all humans help. But some do because it feels right. Because if they don't help, they can't live with themselves." Lyra looked down. "My people think differently. Royals stay protected. Commoners stay far away. We are taught not to trust so easily." Ethan smiled. "Well, maybe we're building something new. A human trusting a Vulpine princess. And a princess trusting a human." Her tail swayed slightly at his words, a small sign of happiness. Yes, something new. Hours passed as they made their way through dense trees and rocky paths. Ethan stopped several times to rest, and each time, Lyra checked his leg carefully. She walked ahead when needed, guiding them. She stayed close when the ground felt dangerous. But eventually, they reached the edge of the forest and looked down at the wide valley below a long stretch of glowing blue grass and crystal stones scattered like shards of ice. At the far end, a tall, ancient tower stood leaning but still intact. Its top pulsed faintly with old energy. "There," Lyra whispered. "The relay tower." Ethan exhaled in relief. "Good. We can make it." But as they began descending the slope, Lyra froze suddenly. Her ears pointed backward. Ethan instantly sensed danger. "What is it?" he asked quietly. "I hear engines," she whispered. Ethan scanned the valley. At first he saw nothing, then a glint of metal, then another. "They found us," Lyra whispered in fear. Ethan grabbed her hand. "Run!" They sprinted across the glowing grass, dodging crystal stones. The raider ships roared closer, engines screaming. Lyra's breath came fast as she tried to keep up, but Ethan never let go of her hand. The tower grew larger with each desperate step. Blaster shots struck the ground behind them, sending up dirt and glowing dust. Lyra stumbled, and Ethan caught her, pulling her back up without losing momentum. "We're almost there!" he shouted. The raiders landed ahead of them, blocking the direct path. More raiders spilled out, armed and ready. They surrounded the two from different angles. Lyra clung to Ethan's arm, trembling. "Ethan, I'm sorry. This is because of me." He stepped in front of her protectively. "It's not your fault, and we're not giving up." The raider leader stepped forward. A tall figure with a jagged mask and a cruel smile. "Hand over the princess, human. You can walk away. Alive, even." Ethan's grip on his blade tightened. "No." The leader tilted his head mockingly. "You care for her? You just met her." Ethan didn't blink. "Doesn't matter. She needs help. And I don't abandon people." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes wide with emotion. His words struck something deep inside her. Something warm. Something fierce. The raider leader growled. "Then you die first." He signaled the attack. Ethan moved fast, pulling Lyra behind a large crystal stone. He dodged blasts, rolled across the ground, and struck at the nearest raider. His injuries slowed him, but his determination burned stronger. Lyra watched him fight every movement, every risk he took for her. Her heart pounded with fear and admiration. She wished she could help him, but she had no weapon, no strength like his. Then she noticed something behind the raiders, a panel on the tower's base glowing faintly. A power switch. An emergency activation device. Lyra grabbed Ethan's sleeve. "I can activate the tower. It will send a strong signal. My mother will hear. The whole royal fleet will hear." Ethan blocked a raider's attack and nodded. "Go, I'll cover you." "But..." "Lyra, trust me." Her chest tightened. She did trust him. More than she had trusted anyone before. She sprinted toward the tower. The raiders saw her and turned their blasters, but Ethan threw himself at them with wild determination. He fought harder than ever, pushing through pain, blocking attacks meant for her. Lyra reached the panel and placed her hand on it. The system lit up, ancient, but still functional. Her Vulpine bloodline allowed the machine to recognize her. "Emergency code," she whispered. "Princess Lyra. Royal distress message." The tower glowed brighter, humming with life. Energy shot upward. A beam of bright gold slicing through the sky. The raider leader screamed, "Stop her!" Ethan leaped forward, blocking the path of two raiders who charged toward Lyra. He fought desperately, his movements growing slower, but his resolve unbroken. Lyra shouted, "Ethan!" He saw her fear and forced a smile. But he wasn't okay. The raider leader struck him with a heavy blow from behind. Ethan collapsed to one knee, dazed. Lyra screamed and ran toward him, but the leader grabbed her by the arm. "You're not sending any message," the leader snarled. But Lyra didn't freeze this time. She bit his arm, her fangs small but sharp. The raider yelled and released her. She stumbled toward Ethan. "Ethan, stand up, please." He pushed himself up slowly, forcing his body to obey. "Get behind me." Before the raiders could attack again, a thunderous sound shook the sky. Lyra looked up, eyes widening in shock. Massive Vulpine warships descended from the clouds, glowing with golden energy. Dozens of fighter crafts followed, surrounding the raiders instantly. Lyra gasped. "My mother." She heard the signal. The raiders panicked. Some tried to run, others aimed their weapons at the sky. But the Vulpine forces stunned them with quick precision, capturing them in moments. A larger ship landed nearby, and a tall figure emerged graceful, fierce, with silver fur and royal markings. Queen Serana. Her eyes swept the area until they found her daughter. "Lyra!" she cried. Lyra ran into her mother's arms, tears streaming down her face. "Mother, I thought you left me." The queen held her tightly. "Never. I searched everywhere. I feared I lost you." Ethan stepped back quietly, not wanting to interrupt. He felt relief wash through him. Lyra was safe now. His job was done. But then the queen's sharp eyes turned toward him. She stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "You," she said firmly. "Human." Ethan straightened despite his pain. "Yes, Your Majesty. You protected my daughter. I just did what anyone should do." The queen studied him for a long moment. Then, her expression softened slightly. "No," she said quietly. "Very few would risk so much for someone they barely knew." Lyra stepped forward quickly, grabbing Ethan's hand before her mother could say more. "Mother, he didn't just protect me. He carried me. He fought for me. He stayed with me through everything." Queen Serana raised an eyebrow at how tightly Lyra held his hand. A small, knowing smile touched her lips. "I see." Ethan tried to step back. "I was only helping. I'm sure you want to take her home now." I'm no." But Lyra shook her head and held his hand even tighter. "I don't want to leave him." Ethan froze. The queen looked between them calmly. "Is that truly how you feel, daughter?" Lyra swallowed, her voice soft but strong. "Yes. He made me feel safe. No one else did." Ethan stared at her, stunned. Queen Serana nodded slowly. "Then he will come with us." Ethan blinked. "Wait, what?" Lyra's ears lifted in joy, and she pressed close to him. Queen Serana stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder. "A man who protected my daughter with his life will not be left behind on this planet. You belong with us now." Said, Me. I'm not Creeding Mare." Lyra smiled, tears of relief in her eyes. "Ethan, will you stay with me?" He looked at her, at the trust in her eyes, the warmth in her smile, and the answer came easily. Quietly. "Yes," he whispered. Lyra wrapped her arms around him, her tail curling warmly around his back. Ethan hugged her gently, feeling the weight of their journey lift. He had carried her through peril. Now, she carried him into her world. And neither of them would be alone again.